Let's touch on the Blackcaps quickly, because I did see in the Kane Williamson press release about his injury, which we should all note, Kane Williamson didn't play any T20s last year for Aotearoa. So as difficult as it is to replace Kane Williamson, the Blackcaps have been playing T20 cricket without Kane Williamson for a year. And someone else can do Kane Williamson's job in the T20 team. As good as he is, I'm confident someone else can do that job, batting number 3. But it is important to note, internationally, I don't think a lot of people realize that Kane Williamson is already picking his spots on when he plays for the Blackcaps. And, well, not necessarily last year, because he was, what am I saying? He was injured last year, and he was having his freakish recovery from an ACL
there
injury.
were T20 series around that, though, which he was available. Because I looked into this. There was games he didn't play, like the home summer, for example.
But the Blackcaps played T20 cricket using 28 players last year. Kane Williamson was not one of them. So replacing Kane Williamson in the T20 team, it is possible. And of course, we do have confirmation of Blackcaps' priorities, which are Test cricket. Even though there's a T20 World Cup coming up, Kane Williamson is being rested for the Test summer. Kyle Jamieson is being rested for the Test summer. And Trent Boult remains part of New Zealand's plans for 2024, for the 2024 T20 World Cup. So you have been big on the semantics, the verbiage around Trent Boult. It does seem like Gary Stead, Sam Wells, what we have noted about how they discuss Trent Boult, it has leaned towards him still being in the mix. And if he's still in the mix for the T20 World Cup, I think it's going to be fantastic for the Blackcaps. And I do have a funky old Blackcaps T20 first 11 that I'll probably discuss in the subscriber pod tomorrow. I want to get Michael Bracewell, Ish Sodhi, Mitchell Santner, Glenn Phillips in the same T20 team for a T20 World Cup in the Caribbean. That is my objective, and I've built out a first 11 with that possible, which is even more impressive if you've got Trent Boult joining Tim Southee in the seam attack of that team. Just something to watch out for, because those dudes are all pretty good at cricket. And spinny conditions, Caribbean T20 World Cup, we know what's happening there. So Trent Boult might still be in the mix, which is good. Any words? I don't really think you need to say anything about Trent Boult, other than confirming your suspicions that he's still in the mix.
Well, was that like a specific? Because I didn't read the full press release. I just took in the tweet version afterwards, which is Williamson rested, minor hamstring, back for test. Will Young replaces him. Sort of expected information. Was that like a? Did they make a specific mention of Trent Boult in the thing? Which
the Crick Info yarn has this quote that says, Stead also confirmed that Trent Boult remains part of the plans. I don't know what was said in the New Zealand cricket side. Yeah, I don't think they care. It's more Crick Info stressing about Trent Boult, as they like to do with folks like Kane Williamson as well. So this isn't important. Who cares? But this is not worth us discussing right now. The Williamson thing, something to watch out for is Devon Conway's lack of form. I set it up as Tim Seifert versus Finn Allen. You took the Finn Allen route. I took the Tim Seifert route. Finn Allen's in great form, so credit to him. He's kind of snuffed out the Tim Seifert challenge. But it's also been alluded to that Tim Seifert will take the gloves from Devon Conway at some point, which might be today for the third T20 International. And Devon Conway, the dirty secret. So again, I've written about this in the newsletter, in the Blackcaps mid-series write-up. A lot of Finn Allen doesn't face enough balls chat. A lot of Kane Williamson strike rate chat. Neither of which is the most pressing storyline of Blackcaps batting.
Also both of which are related.
Correct. The most important Blackcaps batting thing right now is Devon Conway's lack of form. His annual test averages have been decreasing since his debut. His T20 averages have been decreasing every year since his debut. He didn't score many runs after that big old knock against England to start the World Cup. So the most important thing for the Blackcaps right now is Devon Conway and his lack of runs, which might see Tim Seifert come in for him as a wicketkeeper. But we don't need to go deep into that because that might be already have happened by the time you're listening to this. Not sure what's happening. Well, I know what's happening with the bowling, where I'm seeing a lot of Adam Milne opportunities for him, which is good. But to kind of wiggle into the Super Smash, as I alluded to just before, Michael Bracewell's a really interesting cricketer that I'm watching in the Super Smash because he's come back into the mix playing good cricket. He did drop a catch, though, which was ridiculous. I don't think I've seen Michael Bracewell drop too many catches. But again, heading towards the T20 World Cup, he is someone in the Super Smash who folks should be watching closely because he has a realistic chance of making that T20 World Cup squad. And again, Rachin Ravindra is the hype man of Blackcaps cricket. Michael Bracewell, I think, is a better player right now than Rachin Ravindra. He's a better spinner, he's a better hitter, and he's a fantastic fielder usually. So, and he's also got the maturity and kind of comfort with the stage in the arena. Although Rachin Ravindra did his World Cup thing, fantastic. I just think Michael Bracewell's better. And I do want Michael Bracewell in that World Cup team. So wiggling into Super Smash stuff here, watch out for Michael Bracewell with the Wellington Firebirds as someone who can get into the T20 team from outside the current squad. You do have someone like Doug Bracewell who has the talent to be in that team, but I think he needs injuries and opportunities to swing his way. He needs Adam Milne, Ben Sears, Tim Southey, Matt Henry, even Ben Lister, who is one of the best seamers in Super Smash right now, fantastic bowler. As we always say, he does a lefty seam thing where he moves the ball away from right-handers. Trent Boult moves the ball into right-handers. Ben Lister swing, angle, and seam away from the right-handers, which is a really impressive skill set or quirky skill set. I'd say, like, as far as bowling goes, Ben Lister's probably ahead of Doug Bracewell, but Doug Bracewell has the lower order hitting thing in his favor. And we've seen in the series against Pakistan, Adam Milne has been given the opportunity to bat maybe 7 or 8, depending on Santner's availability. So they've put a lot of faith in Adam Milne's skill set. He's a good T20 bowler. I think he's a squad member for the World Cup. But he's getting the lower order hitting slots at the moment. And that's where I think Doug Bracewell offers value, but Doug Bracewell needs things to go in his favor, whereas Michael Bracewell can play his way into the World Cup squad. Like, he was already one of the top 15 Blackcaps prior to his Achilles injury and his freaky comeback. So he just needs to play to his level, and I think he can work his way in. Again, whereas Doug Bracewell, his cousin, needs the stars to align to get in the mix, but they're both there or thereabouts in the Super Smash. Do you have any other kind of Blackcaps angles to that Super Smash? Because I did write about this morning, the best Blackcaps and White Ferns in the Super Smash. Let me just throw out some names that... Yeah, well, do you have any other kind of Super Smash, Blackcaps adjacent thoughts, ideas, maybe Michael Bracewell, anything you want to discuss weaving the Blackcaps into the Super Smash?
Well, I'm all in on the let's get Michael Bracewell to the Caribbean for the T20 World Cup idea. I think I think he would be a massive boost to the team there. We've spoken many times about how much he was missed at the ODI World Cup, and I think arguably Caribbean conditions are even more in his favor there, where you get a little bit more bounce and let him get under that ball and clear some boundaries, as well as his tidy little off spinners, which I don't know you'd see too much in a T20. I don't know you'd see too much of him needing to bowl, but he might. It would depend on the lineup, because you could pick him as one of your 5 bowlers, certainly. But there's good bowling depth, and the seamers will get a little bit more those conditions, I would think,
I
than in
don't
India.
think you're getting much more bounce in the Caribbean. Like it's pretty low and slow in the Caribbean
Compared
at the
to
moment.
India, not compared
Oh,
to
I
like
don't know
Perth
about
or
that.
anything. Yeah, well, if they were playing in those
Unimportant
American
detail.
drop-in pitches,
Yeah.
you certainly would be. But the Blackcaps aren't. They're hanging out in like Guyana and Trinidad. So yeah, maybe I don't know. But I do think he'd go great there, and I would like to see him in there. And I think he will be in that squad as long as he sort of proves his form and fitness before then, and that's so far going as planned. It's been solid in the Super Smash so far, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a big innings to follow. Um, yeah, I wouldn't mind Doug Bracewell in that squad either, but I agree. I think it probably requires an injury or two for him to creep up the pecking order. But he's certainly a dude who's sticking around, and he's batting as well as he ever has, and he's bowling pretty tidily as well. So he's he's one of those guys who's sort of in that position where you 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 might fade away, like you might just sort of like duck into being a little bit more of a not a temporary guy, but just those Black Caps opportunities might start not appearing so much, and he obviously missed out for a while with injuries earlier in his career. But he's not. He's just playing great cricket and staying in the mix. I have been meaning to ask you for a couple of weeks though, because there's been a few guys who did, like you mentioned, the 28 players that played last year, and a lot of a couple of tours that weren't at full banger Black Caps there, but that's where you test out the depth and start to see who sinks or swims or whatever. One dude who definitely earned his way in there, but wasn't actually very good for the Black Caps, and from what I've noticed, I don't think he's really done anything this Super Smash season either. I'm guessing Chad Bowes wasn't on your list of best performing Black Caps in Super Smash this season.
No, he is not, and he hasn't been that great for Canterbury. I like the Cantabrian with the most to play for is Cole McConchie. Cole McConchie, fantastic all rounder. He's basically Michael Bracewell, just not quite as powerful or as good a spinner, but he's still a very good cricketer. Chad Bowes, he's got 37 runs at an average of 6 and a strike rate of 84 in the Super Smash. And this is a bloke who, as you said, he earned his way into the Black Caps through his domestic performances. But he's not doing a whole lot in the Super Smash this summer, and Canterbury have been underperforming, so there's a few wrinkles as to why. Chad Bowes played 6 ODIs and 11 T20s, averaging 16 in ODIs, 17 in T20s. So I don't think he's quite in the equation right now. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. I was just, it seems like he had a chance and he didn't necessarily take it, whereas others did at least enough to stick around. Or if you don't in the first stint of the Black Caps, you at least come back and score some domestic runs, take some domestic wickets, and remind people why you got picked in the first place, and take the learnings from your first opportunity and put them to use the next time that comes around. I'm not sure that's something that's necessarily going to happen to Chad Bowes now. I think he might have.
That's all right. Who cares?
He had a window and he missed it, but so it goes.
As far as but that is also a reason why Canterbury might not be performing as good as they would hope in the Super Smash, because let me pull up the table. I don't think Canterbury are in the top 3 at the moment. This is a rest day, so we do have a little space to talk about Super Smash. Canterbury are 4th, 4 points behind Central Districts, and I think. Like the most impressive players for Canterbury, Henry Nichols has been good, so shout out to him. But you've also got like Zach Foulkes, Mitch Hay, Bevan Jacobs, Will O'Rourke. A lot of like good young players, but it's, again, as we always say, it's not necessarily conducive to winning games. And those players have chimed in, they have contributed to the overall Canterbury performance. But if you want to be winning games, like look at the top of the Super Smash men's table, Auckland. Who are their best players? Louis Dalport, 35 years old. You know, Dunru Ferns nudging 30. You've got Rob O'Donnell, T20 batting average legend. Sean Solier. They did have Lockie Ferguson for a while. He's fantastic. So Auckland are a very good Super Smash team right now with, like, they have Jock McKenzie, brother of Canterbury's Angus McKenzie, two very talented cricketers, and obviously there's a lot of noise about Jock McKenzie's dual code ability as well. Jock McKenzie's kind of their main youngster off the top of my head. And like, so Louis Delport, it's a bit of a hot take, but he's kind of Auckland's best spinner, and that includes Eddie Ashok. So just keep
Has he played much Super Smash, Ashok? I don't think he's played since he was in the Blackcaps,
this season. He hasn't played yet in the Super Smash. But even in Plunkett Shield, Delport played 2 games and like finished as one of their leading wicket takers with a better average than Ashok. So watch out for Louis Delport. But again, this is the thing about Auckland, a lot of very solid professionals in that team. That's how you win games. So let's go to the second team, Wellington. Peter Younghusband, Nathan Smith, Logan Van Beek. They do have, and then their youngsters are like disgustingly dominant, like a Tim Robinson, leading run scorer. Nick Kelly's a professional. Troy Johnson, he's only played 1 game, so he took that catch, but he's only played 1 game. But you've got guys again, Michael Bracewell, Snedden, McPeak. These dudes are all just like certified domestic professionals, and Central Districts, the most certified professional domestic team of them all, to be honest. Like Dane Cleaver, one of the leading run scorers, Doug Bracewell, Ajaz Patel, Jaden Lennox, Tom Bruce. Who am I missing?
Bevan Small, of course.
Bevan Small, the OG, he's there. Will Young was scoring runs for them. He's certified domestic trooper as well. Like the only real youngster for CD at the moment is Will Clark. And what do you know? Will Clark, one of my favorite young cricketers in Aotearoa, not a reliable contributor. That's all right, but like young players are going to struggle to consistently dominate the Super Smash, and the good teams do integrate young players. But as we've explored with the 3 best teams, there's a lot of experience, a lot of maturity in those teams. Like CD's bowling attack, Doug Bracewell, Bevan Small, Blair Tickner, Ajaz Patel, Jaden Lennox. That's all just certified domestic troopers who are very good at what they do. And talking about the cross-code stuff, CD versus Auckland yesterday, Curtis Heafy also played first 15 rugby. I think he played for Palmerston North Boys High School. And now he's playing CD Stags. So I'm pretty confident in that kind of take. Like there is a lot of young talent. We do big up the young talent. We saw Matt Fisher, fantastic against Wellington, just ripping through, I think it was Cullen McLaughlin, to take some stumps out of the ground. Christian Clark was playing for ND. Zach Folks, Will Clark, Muhammad Abbas, Tim Robinson. All these dudes are pretty good. Jock McKenzie. Like, there's a lot of really good young cricketers, and I will always celebrate these young cricketers as with any other youngster who is supremely talented and also a good chap, good wahine. There's a lot of good talent there, but the best of the best are usually older players. And that is on display in the top 3 teams of the men's Super Smash, especially considering like who are the players who are going to add to the Blackcaps T20 team. It is Michael Bracewell. It might be Doug Bracewell. It is Will Young coming in to replace Kane Williamson. Like these are the dudes who can step up for a game, a series, a World Cup. And again, as we always say, I don't think it's good or bad. It just is what it is. You want the best players playing for New Zealand. And who else is going to come into the mix? Jimmy Neesham, currently playing in South Africa. Like the players who add to the Blackcaps are older players, and that's there's nothing wrong with that. They are the players who score the most runs and take the most wickets, and they are the reason why Auckland, Wellington, CD are the 3 best teams in the Super Smash right now.
And why the Blackcaps are so good with a bunch of dudes who are all around 30 and over, which, not a coincidence. You put their years together, you just figure things out at some point. Like Will Young, who I like quick stat on Will Young. I was not 100% sure on this because I was struggling to find like isolated sort of numbers here, but I think because he scored 100 the other day, and I touted last week maybe Michael Bracewell might get the fast track back into the Blackcaps um, in place of Williamson, but in place of Clarkson, who was in place of Williamson, who got injured. But then Will Young, in between that happening and Clarkson getting replaced, Will Young scores 100, which was his second Super Smash 100 because he got one, it was either last year or the year before as well. I was trying to figure out who has scored multiple domestic T20 centuries in New Zealand before. And as far as I can tell, the only other players who've done it before him are Brendan McCullum, Devon Conway, and Glenn Phillips. So that's not just good company. That's like world-class elite T20 company that Will Young is hanging out at. So pretty handy. It's probably his weakest of the three formats. Maybe I will see his with the test stuff but his first class stuff is fantastic. But that's just Will Young for you. He does a little bit of everything. He format to format, he's outstanding.
Swashbuckling Will Young.
Swashbuckling Will Young.